I am pulling the blue BMW into the garage to get to work on the suspension and front brakes. So if you have not been following along, in my first video, I bought this BMW, had some problems with it. I took it home and fixed the rear brakes that were grinding. They were super bad. I also fixed an issue with the windshield wiper. In my second video on this car, I went underneath the hood and replaced the alternator because it was making this horrible squeaking sound. I also replaced the oil filter housing gasket because it had been leaking a ton of oil around the engine bay and onto the alternator. That's actually what made the alternator go bad. And replaced a handful of other gaskets when I was in there. The very next day after I had done all that, it developed a huge coolant leak coming from right under the vehicle, which I discovered to be the water pump. So I swapped out the water pump and voila, we had a nice running BMW that I have driven now for about a week. But it is time to do the suspension. When you drive this thing and hit a bump, it just bounces and bounces and bounces over each bump. So it needs new suspension. We're gonna take off all the wheels, do new shocks in the back and new strut assemblies in the front, as well as doing the front brakes. The rear brakes have already been done, but it's time to do new pads and rotors on the front. As I have the wheels off, I'm gonna remove the fender liner and replace both the headlights because one of them is burnt out and the other one I believe is on its way out. And as I have everything apart, I plan to paint the calipers white because I think it will look really good with this light blue paint. But I met with an unfortunate surprise when I go to test drive it and run into some serious issues. I've got the engine malfunction, reduced power. There's some issue with the boost. So that's what we got coming up in this video. Before we get into it, please subscribe to the channel and like the video. If you have any questions along the way, drop them in the comments below and I will try to get back to every single comment. All right, I'm gonna start with this driver's side front here. Gonna get the brakes off. We're doing the brakes anyway, of course, and that'll free up a little space to get the strut assembly out. I honestly can't remember if I bought a new brake pad wear sensor. This one seems fine, so I'm gonna save this one just in case I didn't buy a new one. Sensor comes out of there. It's got this clip and it goes onto the strut assembly. So we got to take that off anyway to do the strut. So I'm going to set that out aside for now. Couple of 16 mils on the back for the caliper bracket. I'm curious about these pads. Not bad, actually. These, I'd say these have more than half life left on them. I'm gonna compress this caliper piston to get all the fluid out of the caliper because I think I'm gonna take at least these front ones off to paint them. The back ones, I don't know, I might just paint on the car, but making some audibles right here, just making decisions as I go. I'm gonna take a little vice grip and pinch this line off so the fluid doesn't leak when we've got the caliper off. I'm not going to cover at all the painting of these because I have a video on my white BMW of doing the exact same thing. I'll put that up on the screen here if you want to watch me taking all the brakes off of my white BMW and painting them and putting them back on. You can check out that video. Liner wrenches like these are an absolute lifesaver. I remember when I first got a set of these and it was a total game changer. You just slip it over and you still get a good grip. You're no longer stripping stuff out all the time. Gotta get this Allen off to get the rotor off, but look at this thing is just packed. That's, oh my gosh, that's like a, what? It's alive. That was inside the head of the Allen bolt. Is that I don't even know, is that alive? It's like a larva thing. Let me know in the comments what the heck that is. Huh. The more you find. I thought it had just totally rusted up the head of that bolt, but we should be able to get that out now. I don't think I have to take this backing plate off, but it'll make it a little more interesting to film and easier. I'm hoping that this won't just spin. It just spins. There we go. All right, now for the big bolt that holds on this knuckle here. So in order to get this whole knuckle down enough, I've got to loosen up the control arms. Up top, I got to remove this bar just so it's easier to access all these bolts. I think I can just loosen the top without actually taking the top bolt all the way out and just swing those out of the way. This job can definitely be done without taking this off, but I just want to be able to zip these out with a wrench easily. There we go. So I've got kind of a big question mark here. I think I should be able to get this out, but I'm not totally sure. So I think I do have to remove this tie rod out of here in order to get it, because I think that's what's hanging me up from getting this knuckle low enough to get the strut out the top. So this is quite a bummer. I got that one out, as you just saw. Comparing it to the new one, they are not the same at all. I don't know what the difference is. This must be for, I don't know. Maybe this one is for the rear wheel drive and this is for the all wheel drive, the xDrive. There's kind of, and then there's sport and non-sport. So there's so many different types of suspension for these cars. I don't know what happened. I got the wrong ones. But I went ahead and I took the other one out as I wait for the correct ones to come. But we're gonna get onto it and get these shocks in the rear replaced, starting with getting this lower bolt out of here. Yay. Actually, I think I need to take these two E12s out. Now I'm in the trunk to access the top. It's gonna be underneath these side panels. So I've got some of these clips to undo. Same thing on this side. Couple clips. I don't want to bend it or break it, but that should do it. That's my access right there. Look at that. That thing is just absolutely annihilated. This was what I first saw that I was like, I need to replace the suspension. I mean, and on top of feeling it, just shocked. But this should not go up and down so easily. What do you think, Finley? What do you think? Lick it, it'll taste good. No? You want new shocks? Yeah, let's do new shocks. So I've got some new, some used. I didn't get every single little component. They're all sold separately and it really adds up. And the main thing I was getting was just the bouncing because this was garbage. The fluid had leaked out. Should be a lot stiffer. So this bottom mount, we're just gonna clean up and reuse. I got a new shield and a bump stop there. And then this top hat will be reused as well. This is my favorite part, when you get one side of the shock in, you just kind of wait, guide it in. There we go. I just put this back in and I forgot to put this cap back on. Now I gotta take it back off. There we go. Trunk's all back together. Check out these new shocks. Looking good. So I've decided to just take the calipers completely off the vehicle to paint them. I don't know, I feel like it's a lot easier. To me, I'm gonna have an easier time just taking them off completely than trying to like mask around everything. And while this wouldn't necessarily make financial sense to paint the calipers, it's definitely gonna make a fun video and more of a transformation from start to finish with this car. Watch this. Brake fluid. So zooming out, here's where we're at. We've got the front brakes off. The struts are completely out, waiting on the new ones. Finley's just hanging out here. The back, we've got the shocks in and the calipers off of the back on both sides. Now I'm going to work on the headlights, which is going to require taking off this plastic shielding. Let's just take a look at the status of the headlights quick. So here's what I've got with the low beams. I don't know why that's flickering. That doesn't seem good. But we've got this very, like, you can't really see it on the camera, but a very purple looking low beam there and no low beam here at all. So I've got a package right here, the Amazon special. It's got a light for both sides. So I'm just gonna replace them both. I hate when you replace headlights and they don't match in the hue. And it comes with a couple gloves. You do not want to touch these xenon headlights. So to get this fender liner off, there's like 100 little 8mm bolts that have to come out. And the headlight is inside this box, which is closed with 4 T20s. Unplug it, unclip it, and it pulls right out. So I got the new one on hand. Now with both the headlights in, let's see if they turn on, what they look like. That's promising. 1, 2, that looks much better. It almost looks bluey green in the camera. It doesn't look like that so much in real life, but the old one looks super purple. This one looks like a nice white with a maybe tint of blue, but mostly just a bright white. So much better than the purple that we had. I've got a broken BMW kidney grill here. I'm gonna swap it out using just a right angle hook. All right, I'm gonna be putting the painted rear brake calipers back on. I'm pretty excited about how the white turned out. I'm sure that it will get dirty at some point, but I've never done white before, and I felt like this was a good opportunity to kind of try something new. Here's the caliper. I think it turned out pretty well. Now the detailer's headed over to do a multi-step detail, including iron remover, clay bar, polish, and a spray-on ceramic coating. I asked him a little bit about the clay bar because I've never used one before.
Yeah, so it removed all the other contaminate, all the small stuff. After I did the iron removal, I removed a lot of old wax and polish. So this right here come behind that. First you see it was like, it was clean. Now, this all the dirt that's coming from the car.
Even after doing like all the soaping it down and everything?
Yeah. So after I get done with doing this again, I'm gonna wash over again. It gotta get clean, like 100%.
Okay.
Like, okay, if you go over there and feel your hand, just rub your hand across. And you see,
Yeah.
it's kind of hard.
You can you can feel it's almost like gritty a little bit.
So if you come over here, feel it over here.
Okay, yeah.
Two different.
It doesn't make a noise.
No.
Over there it like goes.
Yes. Yes. So
And
that's
over
the
here
difference.
it's like.
The
Is that just water you're spraying or?
no, this is a detail spray.
Oh, okay.
It's a mixture like with soap and like a shine, but it's also like you can go with a clay ball with it.
I won't share too much of this because I want to save the reveal for the end of the video when we go to take pictures. So I'm going to get back to putting the front suspension in. I ended up getting some used front strut assemblies because it's very hard to find new ones for a decent price for the xDrive models. All right, so I got the strut in the bottom here. Now this bolt goes through. Let's do it that way. This can be tightened up. And this does have to go a certain way because there are 3 nuts and then there's a little stud that comes through there. Finger tight, I'll tighten those down once I get the weight on there. I'll get this tie rod connected. I got this little guy to connect. This is for the leveling headlights or something. And the sway bar link. So I've got the old brake pad wear sensor. Here's the new one. I'm just gonna get this wired up and we'll finish it when we put the brakes in. That's ready to be clipped onto the brakes. I'm gonna jack this up about to where the ride height is and tighten those control arms. I'm kind of bummed I didn't actually need to loosen those control arms because I didn't on the other side and I got everything out and in just perfect, but now I gotta tighten those up. I wish I had just left those alone. Jacking this up about to ride height, make sure when you tighten those down, the bushings are in the right orientation so they won't be creaking later on. All right, now to put this freshly painted caliper on. These things are a little awkward to put on because you got to spin the whole caliper and the inlet is at a little bit of an angle, so you can't just spin it straight. You will notice I didn't paint the back of the calipers because why would I? In my experience with this paint is it lasts a long, long time and it is pretty durable, like just doing its job, but it does scuff if you're not careful with it installing it. Take the hose clamp off the back. Not hose clamp, take the vice grip off the back. All right, I'm just gonna set this aside. I'm gonna let it hang on the hose, I'm not worried about that. Let me know in the comments, tell me I'm doing that wrong and I shouldn't let the weight hang on the hose. I don't care. I'll get the shield on. Now the rotor's ready to go on. Caliper bracket time. I'm so excited for this all to go back together and be able to drive this car again, especially with this newer suspension in it. It's gonna feel so much better. Definitely worked out a lot of the issues with this car already. But this is kind of the final one. Like, it wasn't quite satisfying making it drivable and nice when it still handled so horribly and bounced so much over every bump. So this is gonna be like the real closer for this car. And I get to get it out of the garage finally for the first time since it's been detailed. I get to see it in the sun. It's gonna look so much nicer. All right, let's clean these up a little bit. Then I'll put the front clip in. Putting this thing in is the toughest part about painting these brakes. I've painted this exact type of caliper on 3 different cars now, 3 different 335s. But this is really challenging because it's almost impossible to do it without scratching the paint. You just kind of hope that you scratch the paint underneath where it's gonna cover. So in like that. Oh, shoot. There we go. Little damage, some just dirty, but all in all, pretty good. I gotta plug this brake sensor in, which is actually really easy to do with the brakes installed and everything in. Just like that. I'm gonna take a second and mansplain how these brake wear sensors work to you, because a lot of people don't understand how they work or kind of have an over complex idea of how they work. All it is 2 wires that go to this sensor, and the car sends voltage, just a little bit, I think it's like 3 volts or something, through the wire. There's nothing inside of here. The wire just continues and goes back. So the car sends voltage in and it receives it back, and it measures that it's receiving back voltage as it sends it out. This part goes inside the brakes. So the rotor is here, the disc is here, and the pad is my finger here. And as the pad wears out, that touches, and this plastic gets ground away by the rotor. And inside this plastic underneath, not too deep here, is the wire. I'm gonna show you. So as this gets ground away, that wire that used to go from this little bronze piece to that bronze piece and create a continuous circuit gets broken, and all of a sudden the car is not receiving that 3 volts back into the system. It notices that there's a break in the circuit, and then it puts on the brake light. So that's all it is. Your brakes are literally just wearing down this piece of plastic until it breaks the circuit, and when the car senses the circuit is broken, boom, it puts the light on. All right, so I once again have a jack putting pressure on the suspension upward, so the vehicle is essentially under weight, and I can tighten these up top. All right, so I've already bled both the back brakes and the passenger side, so this is the last one to do. All I'm doing here is cracking the bleeder open just a little bit, putting this hose over it, and this hose goes all the way through the lid here and down into this reservoir of fluid. All right, go ahead and pump them. So you can see it bubbles up, and I don't need to do this much because there wasn't a leak or anything. It's just this caliper that has to fill up. So I'm already not getting any more bubbles, so I'll tighten this up as they're pumping in there, and that's it. We're all set, ready to put the wheels on, and it is done. All the brakes have been bled. They look great with the paint. Also, I'm super excited to actually take this thing for a drive and see how it feels with the new suspension. I mean, this suspension I put in had a lot less miles on it, from what I understand, than the original stuff, and it had been inspected with no leaks or anything. So it should, kind of have that factory new-ish ride feel. I like how that looks. I think that looks really good. I went with the white because I'm going to be selling this car. I didn't want to go with something colored that just stood out too much or was too crazy. I thought about just going black, but I really wanted to just try white. I had never tried white calipers before, so I felt like this was a really good opportunity. Black would have been a little too boring. Any color would have been a little too much, especially with this blue paint. I didn't want to do something red on a blue car. That'd look funny. So I'm out for a drive. The suspension feels amazing. You turn, it corners well, no body roll. It's like brand new. However, I am getting an issue. I've got the engine malfunction reduced power light, and I can tell that it's just not like fully boosting. Like there's some issue with the boost. So I'm gonna just do a little inspection and see why I don't have full power. This is what I suspect. Look at that. That pipe just came off. And that's why I'm getting that issue. It just clicked right back in. That clip, I must have not put that in well the first time. This is the charge pipe, and it turns out that connection was damaged, so I ended up replacing it with a used one. I'm gonna reset the code and try again. All right, we got all systems okay. Let's go for another drive and get to experience the new suspension, brakes with full power this time. All right, it already feels a lot better. I can't really give it much when I'm in my neighborhood here. My neighbors would not be happy about that. But let me get to Mexico super quick and we can give it a shot. All right, we're in Mexico now. Let's see what she's got. Oh my gosh. Amazing. That's it. That feels so much better giving it gas when it's got decent suspension. 3, 2, 1. Beautiful. Okay, I totally exaggerated that one for the camera. I'm gonna get called out on that. But it is pretty quick. It is pretty quick. I like it. That looks so good in the daylight. It was really exciting to see it outside in the daylight since it's been detailed. But now I'm headed down to the car wash. I'm gonna detail the engine bay. When you're selling a car, it's easy enough and a huge difference if you detail the engine bay, because the first thing any tire kicker is going to do is open up the hood and just look at the engine, listen to it. And if you can present a nice clean engine bay, that's just going to send the message that this car is well cared for and in good shape. It's not going to look like some clapped out BMW that you know, somebody never cleaned or never took care of. So I'll do a little video from up top of me detailing it. I always like to go to the last bay when I go here and I'm going to be doing something like the engine bay or outside of my car, just so I'm not holding up as many people. I feel bad. All right, just got it home and look at that. That looks really good. Super clean under the hood. In here, everything looks great. It's just the little details, you know, like no dirt or grime on this. The rails down there, all clean. That one's not quite as good. This is gonna take a little bit of wiping. So now I'm gonna wipe it dry, and I'm gonna put a protection on all the plastics just to get them to stay shiny, because these plastics, when you just wash them off with water, they're not gonna really shine. They're gonna get dull. This is just a basic protectant for rubbers and plastics and vinyls and such. It can be used inside the car or in the engine bay. So I'm just gonna use this to shine up some of this plastic. All right, here is the finished product. That stuff worked really well. I can't say that I've actually used that before, but what I like about it is little areas. If you miss little areas, it's not so shiny that it makes that stand out. So it just adds a great overall look to it. A little bit of shine to the plastic. I even used it down on like these hoses, down on the rubber hoses. On this radiator hose I used it, and caps like this. This is the little detail stuff that just makes the whole engine bay look better. When someone opens up this hood, I feel like they're going to be pretty impressed by how clean this looks for a car with 163,000 miles on it. Now I understand this might not constitute a perfect full detail. If I was paying somebody to do my car to clean the engine bay, I would probably expect a little bit more than this, but I've only spent about 45 minutes to an hour on this, and I think it'll make a huge difference when showing this car. I'm headed to get some photos of the BMW, and I just gotta say, I am a huge proponent of good quality photos when you're trying to sell a car. And it really just comes down to basic sales psychology. The photos you put in your vehicle listing are the first impression that any potential buyer gets in the shopping process. You want them to see your listing on Marketplace or Craigslist, wherever you're posting it, and be wowed right away and drawn in. A lot of people will scroll past the listing and not even click on the ad. Primary photo can be the difference maker between them scrolling past your ad and clicking on the ad. But ultimately, you want them to be impressed enough by the photos that they actually come and look at the car in person. The sales are almost never done over the internet. They're almost always done in person. So if you can't get people to come look at the car, you're not gonna get them to buy it. Have you ever gone to look at a used vehicle and you had a certain price in mind, maybe that was below the asking price, and you were gonna negotiate down and walk away at this certain price? Well, then when you saw the car, you fell in love with it. The seller wasn't willing to go down, but you just had to have it because you saw it, you were there, you had invested your time, you had emotionally invested in it, and you really liked the car. So you paid more than you originally had planned, and you didn't get stuck on that certain price. So the best thing you can do while selling a car is to get people to come look at it. And that's why the pictures are so important. Now, obviously, when you're posting pictures of a car, you have to be honest. Don't go and find a stock photo on the internet or do anything deceitful to entice people to come look at the car. Take good quality photos. Don't Photoshop out blemishes or anything like that. That's not what I'm advocating for. All I'm saying is make sure that you spend the time to get some good quality photos. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about how to make sure your photos are good quality. You don't need a professional camera or any crazy setup. I just use my iPhone 13 and I think it takes great photos, but location is key. Don't just walk out to your driveway or your dimly lit garage and take a photo of your car that's halfway backed into a snowbank. I like to find a location with a pretty plain background that doesn't have a street or sidewalk in the background where people are going to be walking and you're going to get distracting things in the back of your images. That's why I always go to this business park with these plain gray brick walls. Now, when taking photos of the car, I like to compress the background a little bit by taking my iPhone and zooming into the 2x. That takes away a little bit of the wide angle and just makes the car look better. Next, just crouch down and get a nice low angle and snap the picture. Another good idea is to leave the car running with the headlights on. Cars look a little bit more alive when they've got the headlights on, a little bit of steam coming out of the tailpipe if it's cold. So leave the car running. This is my favorite angle, kind of a diagonal at the front. Then I like to get a straight on image as well. Then I come around to the back and get that same angle image from the back so we can showcase all sides of the car. Now, if your background is very one-sided like mine, drive the car, turn it around so you can take those same 3 photos with the front angle, rear angle, and then a straight back. So I think these photos look really good. I'm happy with the way they turned out. I didn't edit or Photoshop them or anything. Any color difference you see between the video and the photos is just whatever corrections my iPhone automatically does. That'll also wrap up this car. It's done. It's ready to be sold, listed for sale. It's been a fun one with lots of problems that I've had to fix along the way. So thank you so much for following along. If you have been, I will be doing one more video on this car that will just be an overview of everything I've done to it with an itemized list of all the expenses and the final sale price so I can see exactly how much I made in profit. Again, I want to thank you so much for watching and invite you to subscribe to the channel and go back and watch some of the previous videos on this car if you haven't already seen them. Drop a comment below if you have any questions, and before you head out, don't forget to like this video.